Restaurant Operator Podcast. I'm Mandy Detwiler, editor of Pizza Marketplace and QSRweb, and I'm here today with Jeff's Bagel Run founder, Jeff Perera. Thanks so much for being with us today, Jeff.
I'm thrilled. This is great. I'm so excited.
Well, why don't you take us back to the beginning? What inspired you to start Jeff's Bagel Run?
Yeah, this is like my favorite story to tell because my wife Danielle and I, we love bagels. Like we're just fanatics about a delicious bagel. And she was she'll tell you the story, but like her childhood was like diet was very difficult. So she gotten sick when she was really young, and so she was kind of like a chicken nuggets and bagel kid, and that's all she ate. And so her favorite food when you ask her is a bagel. And 2019, I lost my job. She went back to work, and we kind of switched roles. She was a stay-at-home mom. I became a stay-at-home dad. And in that overlap, we were driving like 45 minutes to get a good bagel, which feels kind of far to get a decent bagel anywhere. And she just said, you should just learn to make me one. And I thought, oh, okay. But like I've never made anything from scratch before. I've never, if it came out of a box, I was pretty good at it. Like I could stir it, I could put the eggs in, I could do what I needed to. But she was like, you should learn to make me one. So I went on this journey of learning how to make bagels. And it was fascinating to me. And I was learning, and I was able to do it from home and be with my kids and be a good dad. And at the same time, kind of filled this little need that we had in our community where we didn't have enough good bagels.
So you started making bagels for the community.
Well, I started making them for Danielle. So
okay,
first,
right.
I just made them for her. And then once I got the recipe right, it took me like 3 months. I was like mad scientist, like making bagels. I was like every day, 3, 4, 5 dozen bagels at a time in my home kitchen. I had little bowls on the counter with recipes written on the top of cellophane. And it was quite the operation that I had built for myself in the house. After we got that recipe right, I just kept making them because it was fun. Like I had a good time. And so after 3 or 4 days of making dozens and dozens of bagels, my wife was like, you got to stop. Like, I can't have these many bagels in my house. This is going to go horribly south for me. Like I need you to like just stop. And I was like, but it's fun. I want to make them. And so we started giving them to our friends. And our friends were like, these are good. I would consider buying them from you. I was like, nobody's going to buy a bagel from some guy with zero training, zero culinary education, especially off of like his porch in his house, So, that didn't stop anybody. So I was just like, let's do it. And we started selling them. I posted a menu in late 2019, like November of 2019. I posted a menu on Facebook and Instagram under the Jeff's Bagel Run account. And kind of the rest is like crazy history. But that was 5 years ago. We started selling bagels out of our house, and now we're here, which is wild.
How many stores do you all have now?
We have 15 stores open.
Fantastic.
So 15 stores open, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas.
Okay. Many fast casual brands struggle to maintain quality and consistency as they scale. How have you kept the product and experience consistent across multiple locations?
I think it starts with like great quality training. So whenever we have a new team start, a new franchisee join the system, we're going to put them through like really extensive training so they can learn what it's like to be an owner of Jeff's Bagel Run, and to make sure that they have that as part of their DNA. That is going to be the first foundation. The second thing we do is we built, I can't say we, because my wife Danielle is a very busy partner and operator in the business with us. She's really the brains behind the whole thing. She's operationalized everything. She's built the standard operating procedures. She's the one who has made sure that consistency carries over from store to store to store. Little example, like we have a veggie cream cheese that we make in a recipe card. And when I make the recipe, I was using a medium pepper, like a medium green bell pepper. Well, your medium might be different than my medium. So then one recipe gets a little bit more than the other. So I took what I thought was a medium green bell pepper, and she weighed it. She's like, this is how many grams we should have. So really systemizing exactly to the gram what needs to be in a recipe or a process that needs to be done is the second thing that we do. The third piece I would say is like picking and like selecting the right franchisees and the right operators to run the business. Because if you don't have that right person at the store level, creating that environment, driving that culture, it just won't happen.
Right. What unique challenges did you face in bringing a bagel concept to market, especially considering how competitive the food industry is?
Yeah, and bringing our concept in particular to market has been a little bit challenging in that we're slightly different than what a normal bagel shop. We only serve bagels, cream cheese, and coffee. We aren't making sandwiches. We're not toasting your bagel for you. We'll slice it if you want to put a little spread on there, but everything's served a la carte. You get a little cup of cream cheese. Everything is like do it yourself or DIY, right? So you have a lot of people who are just traditionally used to going into a bagel shop and getting their, who knows how many hours old bagel toasted and double stacked with cream cheese and, all wrapped up and ready to consume. And
Right.
we're asking you to do a little bit of work. And so I think that's been the biggest challenge is like educating customers and what a fresh baked product really looks like in a bagel shop. And it's
Okay.
all day long throughout the morning. Our opening bake in the morning is just enough to serve those first customers that hit the door right at 6:30 when we
Okay.
open. The
Right.
rest of it is baked fresh throughout the day. So I hire bakers, and my bakers, I tell them, I was like, listen, you're not used to the type of baking we do here. We're more like a short order cook. You are getting a dozen bagels to go right away and as fast as you can in that oven. So it's like just in time and hot for the customer.
Now, how are you making sure that the quality and consistency of your bagels, especially as you scale operations, are the same? How they're the same in one state as they are in the other, with you all making them in house.
Yeah. So every bakery is a scratch bakery. So we do a couple things. One, we have a really strong recipe and an excellent training program to make sure that our franchisees, our bakers, our teams in the stores know the expectation. The second thing we've done is we manufacture in-house a part, we call it our secret recipe. And it's a small portion of the ingredients that is probably the most opportunity for the team to make a mistake with. So we have a packet that goes to the store that they add to their flour and water, and then they can just mix. So it makes it a little bit less of an opportunity to make a mistake. Um, the other thing that's really interesting about working with a fresh dough product is that if you make a mistake, the bagels will tell you like right away. And so if you're trained to bake a bagel and it's going to look a certain way and have a nice color to it and have a nice rise to it, like if you've done something wrong in the recipe, you won't know until the next day. But when you boil that bagel and go to bake it, it's just not going to look right. The dough is going to tell you that you've made a mistake, and then as the operator, you're just not going to serve that product because it doesn't
Okay.
meet that kind of finished product standard. Um, and if you're an operator of a business and you have no product to sell, it probably means you've done no revenue for the day and you've wasted a lot of labor, and you don't make that mistake twice.
Let's talk about the menu. Tell me some of the bagels that you guys sell that are really cool. I saw some on the website that looked fantastic. I mean, they looked so good.
We have a lot of fun bagel flavors that we introduce, and so we have a bagel of the day. So each day throughout the course of the month, there is a different flavor that rotates through. So this week we had, what did we do this week? We did carrot cake yesterday. We had a pizza bagel today. Later in the week we're doing a garlic sesame. So these are bagels that you're not going to normally find, in most bagel shops, but let alone you're not going to find them in a Jeff's Bagel Run every day of the week. But we have some more unique flavors that are everyday staples. We do a rosemary salt bagel, which is just absolutely delicious. Probably one of my top. It's like it's trying to pick at like who your favorite kid is. You just can't do it. So it's like, I mean,
Right.
I would say rosemary salt's like in my top five if I had to narrow it down. It's just really good. We make an Asiago everything bagel. We had an early customer from the days when we were baking from home. He's like, I love Asiago bagels. I love everything bagels. He's like, I wonder if I could, why don't you just put them together one day? And so, you know, to this day, I'm forever thankful for Ben for saying, hey, you should make that a bagel. And we put it together and it's just a delicious combination. So super fun.
Now, what about your spreads? Tell me what you're doing there.
Our spreads are, there's a lot. We have like 15 spreads. We rotate a couple of new spreads in every few months to spice it up. We just came off of an LTO where we had, it was our pimento season, as we were calling it internally. And so we offered pimento cream cheese from the Masters through the Kentucky Derby. So it was a very short run, but it was, a Southern staple that a lot of people love. And It was extremely popular. We're really inspired by kind of the old school bagel shops in the Northeast where they have these giant cases full of cream cheese, wild flavors, and I tell my team if it can be ice cream or you've had it as like a soup flavor, it's probably possible to do as cream cheese. And so we get a little adventurous. We have a cake batter cream cheese that it tastes like it's like, you know, if you ever made a cake and you just like lick the inside of the bowl, it tastes
Right.
just like that. It's delicious on a cinnamon sugar bagel. We make a banana pudding cream cheese that's just out of this world. So we have some fun flavors that I think are unique and inviting and, you know, gives our guests a chance to come back and try something different each time.
As the editor of Pizza Marketplace, it was that pizza bagel that caught my eye on the website for sure.
So earlier this year, we had a rotation of three pizza bagels, pepperoni, just a traditional, you know, red sauce pizza, mozzarella type bagel, and a white pizza bagel. And I thought, you know, I want to do an entire pizza week. Let's like just go crazy. Let's do the bagel of the day all week long is pizza bagel. And so we ended up introducing four new pizza bagels in 1 week. We did a Hawaiian pizza, we did a barbecue pizza, like a pepper and onion, and a margarita pizza. And so we have now seven pizza bagels that we offer on a
Oh,
rotating
wow.
basis throughout the months. It's really fun.
That's fun. That's so
Yeah,
fun.
it's real fun. Customers love it.
So, you've brought on several franchisees in several new markets recently.
Mhm.
What kind of partners are you looking for, and what do you do to support them once they come on?
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people, I think when they think about franchising and they think about having a business, they really want to buy into a system so that they can operate and execute on something that's been built, right? So we look for partners who have strong backgrounds in operations, people who can come into a system, see the value that it has, and execute. You know, that is what makes franchising such an appealing business to entrepreneurs, to people who like to run businesses. You know, I don't necessarily think there's a lot of people who want to run a business but don't necessarily have like a big idea or don't, you know, lose their job and end up making bagels in their kitchen, right? So I think there's a an opportunity for folks who are great operators who love the idea of running a business. And then I think we take it a bit further and we want you to build community. We want you to take that business and really use it as a way to connect with your local community as the business owner. You know, we talk about it. We're thinking about trying to build some kind of campaign around it, but every time we go to a new store opening, I have people who walk straight up to my owners and they say, "Are you Jeff?" And they're all like, no, I'm not Jeff. Jeff's back there. He's baking. He's training the team. He's back there. But let me tell you who I am. My name is, you know, Mandy, and I own Jeff's Bagel Run here in Orlando, Florida. And I'm just so excited to, you know, to be a part of this community. And I can't wait for you to come back and try our bagels again another day.
Do you worry about losing control as you franchise? Is that something that you're worried about?
Oh, I mean, it's the one thing that keeps me up at night. You know, I think it is. It's really scary. You know, there's never a time where you're not thinking about how is a customer going to feel in Houston? How is a customer going to feel in Charlotte? You know, um, did I don't know. It's hard to explain, but yes, I feel that way a lot. You know, we opened our first store in 2021. We sold our house. You know, we liquidated assets. We were all in to get just one Jeff's Bagel Run off the ground and start this kind of journey of entrepreneurship down that road. And when we did that, um, it took us a long time to hire our first employee. It took us a long time to release that control, even just within the store.
Right.
We're getting better at it. You know, I think today it's easier because we've selected good partners. I think it's easier because we have systems in place that we can fall back to when something goes awry. We can say, hey, let's just go back to the basis of the business, A's and B's and C's, and just try to kind of toe that line. And if we can continue to like just go back to the basics, execute there, you know, those moments of control feel a little less scary, if
Right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
What surprised you the most about running a bagel shop versus running it out of your house? What was one thing that kind of surprised you the most?
Um, Honestly, I think the thing that surprised me the most was just how well received the business was. The amount of customers that showed up, and we were still pretty space constrained and like labor constrained when we first opened. So perspective, I was making like 120 dozen bagels a week out of my house.
Wow.
So I would have like 3 or 4 days a week where I would do 30 or 40 dozen bagels. I had 5 refrigerators in my garage. I mean, it was an operation. We knew we had a lot of customers because our website sales, we built a website to drop inventory, and we would sell the bagels at like 7 p.m. every Sunday night for like 2 weeks forward. So we'd have this like inventory drop, and we'd have thousands of unique store visitors. We'd have hundreds of thousands, like thousands and thousands of refreshes to try to get the inventory to try to buy. So we knew we had demand. But when we went into the shop and we increased our capacity and we were doing 60 dozen a day, we were still selling out. We're like, wow, there's a lot of people who need bagels. Like, so then we bought another refrigerator for the shop and invested a little bit. And now suddenly we're making, 96 dozen bagels every day. And then, okay, 96 doesn't sell out. And then it's like, okay, well, can we push it to 120? And by push it, I mean like physically, because we were hand rolling every piece of dough at the time. And it was my wife and I, and we had 2 small kids, and it was a lot of work. And so I think the thing that I couldn't get over was just how many people just kept coming and kept coming. And to me, it's still a surprise when we open a new store and we do, 300-400 customers show up for a grand opening. It blows my mind.
Well, good bagels are hard to find. I
Yeah.
mean, they're
Yeah.
bottom line, they're just hard to find.
I think what's happened, and I understand why it's happened. I think that investments take place, companies try to streamline, they try to find ways to make it easier, they try to find ways to make more profit in their businesses. And so what I have seen as a consumer of bagels over the years is that outside of the mom and pop shops, the big brands that started small in the past have moved to this like economies of scale where they're bringing in a frozen dough product. They're using a par baked item. I mean, it's not news. Very proudly, about a month ago, Panera Bread, which is one of the biggest producers of bread probably in our country, said we're going to go to not making any fresh bread in our bakeries anymore.
I
And
didn't know that.
they talked about it very proudly because they want the customer. And it's actually funny that the CEO used this example in the talking point, but he said, I want the customer that comes in at 8 a.m. for an Asiago cheese bagel to get the same bagel at 4 p.m. And that's fair. I completely appreciate that point of view, but I would say that the customer that's coming in at 8 a.m. would rather have a better bagel than to even have one at all at 4 p.m. And so, our thesis is just make it fresh, scratch made every day across all the products in our store. We don't own freezers. We don't have any freezers in our store. So like everything is fresh. The produce is fresh. The cream cheese, they're very tiny. Like we might do 600-800, maybe 1,000 pounds of cream cheese a week. We're getting like 2 or 3 trucks a week because we can't bring in, we don't have enough room to store all that cream cheese. So it is a very fresh product. Every day we're making cream cheese. We're rolling our dough. It's labor intensive. It's hard, but the product is delicious. And I think that's a differentiator.
Right. Well, how do you approach innovation, whether it's in your menu, your technology, or your customer experience?
So technology is where I really want to lean in on this because when we first started, we were using kind of off-the-shelf POS systems to run our business. There's a lot of integrated options that we could use to bring in delivery parties. Third-party delivery is always something that you have to consider as a restaurateur in this environment today. That's a big part of the business. And so we wanted to make sure we wanted to have everything available to our guests, but at the same time, we wanted it to be proprietary. So the first 3 people that we hired at the company were software engineers. And we set out to build our own kitchen display, POS, customer mobile app. We wanted to make sure all 3 of those things integrated together, worked seamlessly, and gave us really a competitive advantage in the future when we had 15 stores, 100 stores. We were the most sophisticated 2-store bagel shop ever in existence. We built a full POS, full kitchen display, full pack delivery system. It's a cute name. It's called Odd Dough, Dough, Mation. And it was pretty neat to be a part of the process of building that. I've never been an inventor on a patent until doing that, which was pretty cool. And so we're pretty proud of what we built. And it really allows every store to have a mini version of Danielle and I in it, because whatever we did in our brains to make our bagel rack full in our first two stores, and that system that we had developed over just months of reps, we were able to capture that as data, turn it into an algorithm, and spit it back out now to anybody who we hire as a baker. And all they have to do is refresh their screen, and it takes the sales data and the trend and says, bake this. I need to bake it now because this customer is going to buy it. So it's more of like an on-demand, just-in-time, system, which is really, really exciting.
There's a lot of talk in the restaurant industry about culture. What makes the culture at Jeff's Bagel Run so unique?
From the start, Danielle and I just decided, that in our first store, we had 20 plus years each in like retail operations, multi-unit leadership, big companies like Target, Ross Dress for Less, Apple, the North Face, like big brands with global presence. And, we learned a lot about what to do, what not to do, what we liked, what we didn't like around culture. And, I had some experience working in restaurants like in college, and it was like bartending, serving. And the restaurant industry gets kind of a bad rap. We are some of the hardest working people in the world, providing food to you to eat. And, oftentimes, people just don't want to work in the environment, whether it's the late nights or the fast pace or whatever that looks like. But I think it really comes down to just having an inclusive, positive place to work. So we just don't stand for anything that doesn't wrap around that. If you don't have a positive attitude, if you're not inclusive in your thoughts, your experience, it's just probably not a good fit for you. And we have it's like an internal, like, when you're hiring somebody, you're taking a guess. There's like a 50-50 shot they're going to work out, right? And so you have to hire fast to fill the roles, but you have to fire faster if they're not a fit. And sometimes the person with the best intentions, with the best experience, is not the best fit culturally. And if it doesn't gel with the team, or they can't meet that inclusivity or positivity standard, they just don't get to play anymore. And I think that has really set a tone. And so when our franchisees come to our corporate stores to train, they're working with people who have that. And, if they show up and they have that attitude, then they're like, oh, I like this. This is what I want in my store teams. And you're just able to hire more of that. And you have a really positive experience for the employees and for your customers when they're in there.
Okay. Well, let's say that I'm making pizza out of my garage or candy out of my kitchen. What advice would you give to aspiring food entrepreneurs looking to start their own business having done this?
I hear this question all the time. People ask me this like every day. I'm sure someone comes up to me and they're like, well, I'm making cookies. I started this business. How do I do what you did? And I tell them, I was like, you have to do it because you love it. If you're doing it for the idea of starting a business, then, you just better be ready, because it just is it does become a job. I was doing it because Danielle wanted me to make her a bagel. She's like, make me a bagel. She was worried about my mental health. I just lost my job. Like, what's it going to be like for this guy who was like the provider, the breadwinner, and now he's suddenly at home as a stay-at-home dad, and like, maybe this will keep him busy and it'll make me happy. And so I did it out of love for her. And we joke sometimes that Jeff's Bagel Run is a love story because I made this bagel for her. And it just turned out that it became a business. And so I tell people all the time, if you do it and you love it, just keep going, keep at it, and understand, this is the piece I think that's the biggest piece of advice I give people, is understand that everyone's success looks different. So if you're happy making pizza or candy or cookies out of your home and you can do it, and you make $50,000 a year and you're living the life that you're happy living, then I think that should be something that you're really proud of. You can't measure your success against someone else's unless you've set that expectation for you to be at that level. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense and it was clear.
No, it
but
does.
I think,
Yeah.
just like, you have to love what you're doing, and you have to know that like success for you needs to be defined for yourself. Like I never wanted to open more than one store, and then we opened a second one. And then I never wanted to do anything, Danielle and I were like, no, we're never doing anything more than two stores. And then here we are, 15 stores deep with, a corporate team of 20 people and hundreds of employees now. And um, it's wild.
It is wild, and it's
It's wild.
the way it happens is just you look at where you were and where you are now, and it's just amazing.
And we're only getting started. That's the part that blows my mind is that, at 15 stores, this really is the tip of the iceberg. We have over 100 stores committed through area development agreements or franchise agreements. We have about 17 total, I think, franchisees on board. And so it's really only the start, which is wild because, I feel like I've been doing this forever already. It's been 5 years, but here we are. We're going to be doing this for many, many more years. And it's really exciting.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course. This was wonderful.
That'll do it for this episode of the Restaurant Operator Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.